The Atlanta Hawks acquired hotshot Trae Young nearly 6 years ago in a draft day trade. Normally, when you land a superstar caliber player, the acquisition is celebrated. But in this case, Atlanta missed the boat. As amazing as Trae Young has been, the Atlanta Hawks traded Luka Doncic in order to get him, which was a misfire. Despite boasting similar career trends, both men having reached the conference finals, Doncic is clearly the superior offensive player. Doncic's continual growth since his sophomore year on that end of the court makes Young look like he's still breaching the surface. Luka just scored 73 points. There is no discussion as it pertains to comparing the two, because Luka Doncic is not in competition with Trae Young. That trade on draft day 2018 is unequivocally a failure from the Atlanta Hawks front office. A failure that cannot be legitimized unless Trae Young ends up bringing ultimate glory to the city of Atlanta. That's how limitless the ceiling is for a generational talent like Luka Doncic. Trae Young is not a bad basketball player, far from it. Trae Young has produced tremendously. He's a superstar caliber player, and at this point his floor is all-star level. But it's his limits that are concerning, and the NBA world has not been kind to the Norman guard about his limitations. Trae Young has displayed a body of work worthy of all-star considerations, yet he's only managed to make the all-star team twice 5 years into the league, and this year he barely makes it in as an injury replacement. But an injury selection feels unattractive, almost backhanded for a guy averaging 27 and 11 a night. Trae Young has been branded with the curse mark. Man, where's the love? I've been a fan of Trae Young since Oklahoma, an undersized player who relies on skills more than talent and is unnecessarily treated like a villain. It's easy to root for the man, and his game is so dynamic when he's in that zone. He can score on all three levels, even extending to the fourth level. He's one of the shiftiest players in the league because he controls the ball like a yo-yo. And yeah, sometimes the string gets tangled up, but all this praise is to say his inefficiencies don't matter if you view him through the lens of a hooper, because he's an exceptional hooper. Watch his clips in the offseason during runs or pro-am games. The difference in skill level between him and everyone else on the court is astonishing. But he plays in the National Basketball League, not the Drew League. And the NBA is pro ball, not AN1. If hoopers ran the league, Sharif Cooper would be more valuable than Alperen Şengün. But that's not the case, which is why Trae Young has faced such adversity so far. The ceiling for hoopers is Kyrie Irving, Kobe Bryant, or Kevin Durant, those who've transcended the art of hooping. In the eyes of many, they're the perfecters of the craft. They can ball on any floor under any circumstances. If you give them the rock, they will produce however you want them to. That upper echelon is what separates the Brandon Jennings of the world from the Uncle Drews. There's a very high ceiling in that case, and Trae might not be tall enough to touch it. Has Ice Trae reached his ceiling? Is it realistic to expect him to make another jump? Will he ever become a top 5 player? Quite frankly, it's up in the air. Young, despite being a phenomenal basketball player, has constantly been overshadowed by his peers. He's 25 years old. If we look at the landscape of the league, there's a handful of guards around that age who are eclipsing him currently. Halliburton, SGA, Booker, D. Mitch, Fox, Brunson, Maxey, Doncic. Am I saying everyone mentioned will have a more fruitful career than Trae Young? No, only time will determine that. But statistically, they're performing around or better than him. And when you're not even a top 3 point guard in your own conference, why would a franchise feel confident in you as their face? This is the conundrum facing the Atlanta Hawks. They have a very talented team, but they're uncertain if Trae Young is the man to lead this group. And the larger NBA sphere as a whole is questioning if Trae Young can lead any winning team. If you don't believe me, listen to the players. In an anonymous survey conducted by The Athletic, 54 NBA players agreed that Trae Young was the most overrated player in the league. Now, the sample size sounds small, but 54 out of like 400 something, That's about 1/10 of the league. And think about how much flack guys like Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle receive, and both were lower than Young. The numbers don't lie. And the Trae Young hate isn't some baseless narrative spread by spiteful rival fans and pro players who are jealous that an unathletic 6-footer can terrorize defenses every night. If you witnessed Trae Young in his first 3 seasons, he was either foul baiting his ass off with that one crab floater, which was universally hated, or he was pulling up from the hash. Just an overall unpleasant style of basketball. And it translates as well as you'd expect in games that actually matter. Aside from the Knicks series, Trae Young has been a playoff dropper. Let's not forget, after upsetting the 76ers in the Eastern Conference semifinals, Trae Young and Atlanta faced off against Milwaukee with Giannis Antetokounmpo on the sideline. And what did Trae proceed to do in this series with a chance to go to the NBA Finals? Yeah, those numbers are sickening. He might as well have been out there killing clock. And I'm aware he missed 2 games, but that just makes his 24 total turnovers even more daunting. I mean, in Game 2, Trae Young almost managed a 15-point triple-double with 9 turnovers. Trae Young doesn't need negative press when his production does all the writing for him. His inefficiency and ball security have been his crutch. He's shooting 42% from the field this season, an expected percentage from the Hawks guard, because in his 6-year NBA career, he has 1 season where he's converted more than 45% of his field goals. In that same time span, he's averaged more than 4 turnovers a night 5 times. 5 consecutive years to be exact. He's turned that bitch over 4 times a night since his 2nd year. But we can cut Trae some slack considering every ball-dominant guard who also distributes at a high volume turns the ball over plenty. But Trae Young's survival depends on his ability to stay efficient. A small guard with non-existent impact on the defensive end can't function as a number 1 option if he's shooting in the sub-40s. Ice Trae needs to adapt his game to accommodate this reality. Young has stated numerous times that his favorite player growing up was Steve Nash, and there couldn't be a better man to morph his game after. Obviously, Nash never had the kind of firepower Young does, but he's a Hall of Famer and a 2-time MVP. He practically owns the 50-40-90 club, which is considered the most prestigious marker of efficiency in basketball. Steve Nash was a member for 5 consecutive seasons at the height of the prison ball era, where games would routinely finish with scores in the 60s, which could occur in a quarter nowadays. Nash is the perfect mold to cast Trae Young's game into, and Trae Young has made strides in the playmaking department. Checking the score logs and assessing with the eye test confirms this notion. Young is one of the best passers in the NBA. There need not be any contention because the numbers prove as such. Among starters, Young has the 2nd highest assist percentage in the NBA, trailing only Tyrese Halliburton. Assist percentage is a simple, non-specialized stat that showcases how much a player contributes to his team's assists when he's on the floor. Essentially, Trae Young is responsible for nearly 45% of all his team's assists when he's on the court. Trae is an elite playmaker, and he's laps ahead of almost everyone in that department with the exception of Tyrese Halliburton, who is having a world-breaking season. Pretty much every passing stat has Halliburton first, with Young right behind him. But to Young's credit, if we look at the total passes made per game, he's doing way more with less, having an average of 57 passes a game compared to Halliburton's 69. These recent weeks, most assumed the Hawks' backcourt would be split with Murray getting out of Atlanta. DeJounte Murray, the way he's been playing of late, is motivated, especially when contenders and big market teams were calling. But the trade deadline has passed us and Murray is still an Atlanta Hawk, so we can assume that the Hawks don't have any future plans to move off of Murray, as if there was any time to trade him, it would have been now. So we have to judge this Atlanta team for what it is right now, because that's what it's going to be for the rest of the season. If there was ever an NBA team fitting of the term mid, it would be the Atlanta Hawks, a team that'll win 40 games and lose 40 of them. And with the Eastern Conference becoming seemingly more iron-hardened, this Atlanta core's light dwindles. Maybe leaps from guys like Jalen Johnson, Okongwu, or DeAndre Hunter can elevate their ceiling next season, but at this point, the Atlanta Hawks are stuck in the middle of nowhere, aimlessly adrift. No winds to carry their sails. Thanks for watching.